All right, now with the intro out of the way, people, let's actually go ahead and discuss the first conference that happened today. I'm actually going to admit, when I'm recording these videos, at least for today, I'm recording them super, super late because that's the availability I had. So let's go ahead and cover the first conference today, and that was for EA. People might be asking for my Square Enix conference. I have not seen it all the way through, and it'll probably be the last one that I do on this particular list of videos, just because I need to go and actually track down a video for it. But that's not what this is for. Today, or at least this video, we're talking about Electronic Arts and whether or not they were able to do a good couple of announcements for the coming years, or did they fall short? And so I just want to kind of preface this into my view, or into the video. I didn't expect a whole lot from EA. People might remember last year, I thought, excuse me, last year the EA conference was okay. It had some problems here and there. I complained about the fact that Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 showed up a lot more often than it should have. I laughed at the whole Hoop God thing and all of the sports game coverage. And I mean, here's the thing, too. Electronic Arts, you have to expect the sports game coverage. That's where a lot of their income is coming in from. So at that point, I don't have a whole lot of expectations. There was really only one game from EA that I was excited to see more about, and that was Mass Effect Andromeda. So at that point, let me kind of go into... So I have notes like right here in front of me, of everything that happened during the conference, and especially I have highlighted the things that I did like, and the stuff that I didn't like isn't highlighted. So let me go ahead and go into the things that I did like. I'm not going to go in order and say what they covered. We'll go in order in the dislikes, but as well as the likes. Starting off, we have Titanfall 2 from Respawn. Now, people might know I didn't play the original Titanfall. In fact, if I remember correctly, Aldo Gomez of Geek News tried to kind of wave me off of it, especially since I was wanting a single-player campaign, and there is one, but it's mostly online, and it's based around, I guess, the multiplayer achievements, things like that. Or it's based around multiplayer in some way. So, at that point, it didn't really catch my eye, and I never played Titanfall. Especially when I eventually got an Xbox One, I tried to play it on PC. But at least the premise looked cool. It was kind of a mech warrior kind of deal. You know, you could be a soldier, but at the same time, you could also pilot a mech and have the same kind of gameplay, but, you know, you have the snazzy new UI. So Titanfall 2 was kind of their opener. We'd already seen the leaked trailer for the single-player campaign for Titanfall 2. And this is actually one thing that people reached out to me on Twitter and asked for my opinion on the matter, because I did actually, in the early days of Geek News, praise Titanfall for its unique concept. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with my assessment then, just because it's including mechs, but it's not, like, unique. The mechs don't feel unique enough. It just feels like you're a bigger soldier. So at that point, my viewpoint on the... sorry, I have to refresh this because it's on my Surface. So, my thoughts on the single-player campaign for Titanfall 2 looks okay. I've seen the trailer. It looked intriguing. My only concern on the matter is that if it's not longer than, say, 6 hours, I don't know if I'd put down money for it. That's actually one of my biggest complaints. You know, I might actually have to do a video about this later, but people have gotten frustrated with me that I don't do a whole lot of multiplayer coverage, or that I try in a multiplayer game, like a majority multiplayer game, to highlight the single-player stuff, aka Battleborn. So at that point, I'm just going to say here, again, I'm not really a multiplayer guy. I play multiplayer on certain games, but I'm not exactly playing Call of Duty. I'm not exactly playing Battlefield. I'm one of those guys that, like, if you could turn off the multiplayer aspects of Dark Souls, I would do it. Because that's how I like to play. I like to play single player. I'm more interested in a story than I am about my multiplayer score and whether or not I scored platinum. I don't care. And so at that point, having a single player campaign is awesome, but I've already run into the trap of paying $60 for a 2-hour campaign. Contrary to what a lot of COD fans believe, I actually did buy a COD at one point and was disappointed because I thought I was going to get more story out of it. And I didn't. And that was frustrating, especially since I put down $60 for it. So at that point, back to Titanfall, I liked what they did with Battleborn for having a 6 to 8 hour campaign. And now that's kind of shaped how I want to do this, is that if it's got a campaign longer than, say, 6 hours, then it might be worth it to me. If it's not longer than 6 hours, if it's below 6 hours, I might have to look at a few other things to dictate whether or not it's worth it, but the story alone wouldn't buy it for me. So at that point, that's my viewpoint. It looks interesting, but I'm more worried about the price tag being worth it. The next thing that is on my list, obviously, is Mass Effect Andromeda. It looks really good. We didn't get a whole lot of information, obviously, just that I guess humanity is... Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to drink here because these are kind of impromptu vlogs. But I need to preface this really quick. I have not finished Mass Effect 3, so I don't know how this is going to connect or anything like that, but I guess we are going to be moving to a new galaxy, and we are the aliens. And I actually do kind of like that concept, because that's one of those things that does enrich the Mass Effect experience, is, you know, the first 3 games, we were in a galaxy that we knew head to toe. We knew all of the systems and all of the races, and in this case, this allows for BioWare to just create brand spanking new races for us, and I love the idea of it. Sure, we're going to have Asari. I think we saw an Asari in the trailer. I'm trying to think if we actually saw any other races. I don't think we did. We may have seen a Turian, but I'm not sure. So at that point, the fact that we're basically a fish out of water, I like the idea of. I don't know necessarily if I agree that we're going into the whole Old West aesthetic that the last year's trailer showed us, but I think it's still going to be very much like a fish out of water. There are some mechanics that are coming back, because I believe in the trailer we did see the Mako come back, but we'll see if that actually does happen. So I'm excited still for Mass Effect Andromeda. It's looking really good. And then the final one that I actually want to get into that some people might actually think was a down to me, but it's more of a plus to it. And that is the announcement for EA Originals. So EA basically came out and announced that they wanted to do a specific program, I believe is the way that they tried to point it out. They wanted to do a program where they could reach out to indie developers and let them sponsor them, so to speak, and they'll help out with the publicity and things like that, kind of like what they did with Coldwood and Unravel. And they already had another game to be able to unveil with that. Now, before I get to the game, there is one little problem I have with the announcement of EA Originals, and that is that they made the very big claim that all profit would go to the indie developer. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just don't know if I necessarily trust EA on this matter, because in all honesty, that can't be true. I'm very skeptical about that. I really do think that they're going to want to cut, and they're basically putting this in for PR purposes, and we'll find out like a year or two later that they get like a 20% cut of your profit, which I'm okay with, because at that point, I mean, if they're basically putting their media machine behind you as an indie developer, that makes sense, that they would want at least some kind of payment. I'm also curious as to, you know, what makes you qualify, but they didn't really go into too much detail about that. But I wanted to make that clear. I do not think the whole profit going 100% to the devs is entirely true. I think they will want to cut. And obviously the devs that they work with, I think, are going to be okay with it. And 20%, like, if it's a 20% cut, I'm okay with it. If it's a 50% cut, EA, you can do a little better than that. So at that point, I want to go into the first game that they unveiled under this banner, which was from, I can't remember the studio's name, but it was called Fee. Or Faye. Yeah, I think it was Fee. And so it's basically there wasn't too much announced. You're basically in a dark forest playing a little animal in that forest, and it's essentially a sound or a music game because you have to use your beast call kind of thing to react to the environment around you. And it looked really, really good. I obviously got very excited for it. It's not Coldwood again, but considering how well Unravel did and how good this game looks, I don't think I'd have a problem putting down the money for it, especially since it's an indie title and they're usually not as expensive. I wish we knew more about it, but nothing against the guy that tried to convey it, but I think he moved a little fast. And so when I was trying to keep track of all of the assets, like, there are bad guys in this game, you have to avoid them. I didn't really catch the term that he used for them. And I tried to look it up, but, it's still too early to be able to see all of that online, at least from the major outlets. So, Fee looks very exciting for me. I look forward to seeing more trailers on it and more info or information on it. But so that's pretty much the likes that I had of the EA conference, and so I'm interested in Titanfall 2. I'm excited for Mass Effect Andromeda, and I'm excited for Fee. Let's go ahead and go into the negative stuff, because I think I've rambled on enough about positives. So first of all, having Peter Moore there, people will know from Geek News I have a major malfunction when it comes to Peter Moore, especially when he likes to make those auspicious claims that nobody plays single player anymore. Hi, Peter. I play single player. I like playing single player. In fact, one of the things I find really funny is a lot of your most prosperous franchises are single player. F you too. And so at that point, let's go ahead and get into... So they had the conference out in LA, and then they had him out in London, specifically to unveil the sports games. And thankfully, this year the sports games were not that bad. I didn't have to sit through... I think the last year it was a solid half hour, 40 minutes of stuff. It was soccer, it was football. I think there was even it was either baseball or hockey in there too. This time around, we had the announcement of the Madden 2K17 and the Madden 2K16 tournament, and all of the controversy around that. Which, sports game fans, I'm not trying to be mean to you guys. I appreciate that you care about this, but let me give you kind of my premise. I haven't played a sports game for about a good 10, 15 years. I haven't followed sports. I haven't done anything like that. And I'm sure a friend of mine will point out, but Drak, you'd like to follow wrestling. Not in a game format. And really, I don't like to follow wrestling. I like to follow the men behind the wrestlers, so to speak. So I don't necessarily agree with that concept. Now, again, you guys like it, and that's great. Because being geeky is being passionate about something. And so I'm glad people like it, and I'm glad there's a market for it. But to me, this is usually the part of the EA conference where I tune out. Because I have no interest. Occasionally, they would bring in a new Need for Speed game, and I'd be okay with it. But this time around, no. We got Madden 2K16 and 17, and we also got FIFA 17. So I'm just going to kind of gloss over these a little bit. And again, sports game fans, I'm not interested in this, obviously, and therefore I'm a little biased, so take that with a grain of salt. I'm not interested in the tournament. I'm not interested in 2K17. And with FIFA 17, they did have some interesting ideas. I like their concept of campaign mode being able to follow individual players. I thought, looking back on it, that was a good idea. But I'm not invested in Alex Hunter, and I'm not invested in the fact that they now have managers in FIFA 17. Good. I just wish I had more to say on the matter, but not really. So I'm glad that Madden fans and FIFA fans are going to get a new game. The next piece I have quite a bit to say about. Well, actually, let's gloss over that really quick because I have a feeling that's going to piss some people off. Battlefield 1. Again, whoop-de-freaking-do. I'm not a Battlefield fan. I'm not a COD fan. And I'll be perfectly honest, I kind of tuned out at that point. Battlefield is Battlefield. I didn't really see any major differences that they were trying to do there. Maybe like a more involved story mode, but I'm not going to play it. So I'm not as invested in that matter. The next piece, however, I was kind of invested in because we had been hearing about a big Star Wars announcement happening at this press conference. Since EA is the only one that's doing anything with the Star Wars license when it comes to games. And I just have one simple question. What was your announcement? Seriously, what was your announcement? I saw your video. I saw your trailers. I listened to Jade What's-Her-Bucket speak. And I'm asking honestly, what was your announcement? So, for people who didn't watch this, let me kind of go over this with you. They brought out people to basically say, yay, we have content coming. We're not going to tell you about it. And people might be curious as to why I think that. So we got hints here and there, but mainly it was just stuff is coming. So for example, with Battlefront, we got to hear that there is new content on the way. And that content is inspired by the new trilogy. Okay, what's the content? I don't know. They didn't say. Is there a battleground? Is there a new hero? I mean, it's Finn and is Finn going to be in the game? Is old Han Solo going to be in the game? Is Kylo Ren going to be in the game? Is it? I want to say Riley. That's not right. Is Rey in the game? I don't know. They didn't announce. So at that point, that was their Battlefront announcement. Alongside that they were working with Motive, I think that was the team name, on said content. But we don't know what that content is. Okay. Then we got to go into Galaxy of Heroes, which is, I think, a mobile property. And we know that stuff is coming. We don't know what that stuff is. Well, actually, we kind of do. So another thing that they also announced was that they're going to add in, what was it called? EA... They were adding new features to EA Access, which is basically they were trying to add in more charitable challenges to games. I thought that was funny specifically because one of the challenges that they want to try and bring people into was Battlefield Hardline. And I'm just like, people play that game? Because last I checked, I mean, I'm not a Battlefield fan, but I have friends that are, and they never picked up Hardline. So I'm like, this is a great way to bring people in, I guess? Or bring people back? Oh, wait, nobody played. So, at that point, one of the things that they did announce was that, I can't remember who the charity was. It was for a women's charity. They were going to do a specific mission in Galaxy of Heroes for it. No specific details on it, but they're going to do that. So basically, this was another message of stuff is coming. Old Republic, stuff is coming. And then we got to the two games that we know virtually nothing about, which was the one that was recently announced that Respawn Entertainment, the people who do Titanfall, are working on, and Visceral. Now, a lot of people thought that the Visceral game was officially done because we hadn't heard anything about it. It's not. In fact, it has, I guess, an expected release date of 2018, but I couldn't tell you anything aside from that because, well, EA didn't tell us anything about it. We got, like, the best way to describe it, and this is how infuriating it was. People remember a couple of years ago, I hated the whole Trip to Skywalker Ranch trailer that Battlefront gave us. This was 5 versions of that from all the various teams. Especially with Respawn and with Visceral. Because we had... with Respawn, we had motion capture lightsaber footage, I'm guessing. And then with Visceral, we had concept art and a possible in-game footage deal, but I guess from the details that they were giving, it was that it was early in-game footage. So for all I know, the engine has changed. So I love the fact that certain people during the live streams I followed were excited for the imagery and stuff like that we got. And I'm just kind of sitting there going, this is concept artwork. I don't know how close this is going to be to the actual engine. And you're showing early in-game footage. I don't even know if the engine looks like this anymore. I know that it's probably going to be Frostbite because that engine got hammered into my head the entire time of this conference, but I can't tell you that this is how it's going to look, or that this is even the game. So at that point, it really was 5 separate videos of the Skywalker Ranch thing for Battlefront. And I'm just going to point out my viewpoint on this very clear. Electronic Arts, if you have something to announce, and I mean you have a gameplay trailer, a teaser trailer, something with in-game footage, feel free to announce it. Stop pulling this crap. It's infuriating, especially when you say that you have a Star Wars announcement and you don't announce anything. And before people start jumping down my throat, saying stuff is coming is not really an announcement. It would have been better if Battlefront had said, or done say, we have these 2 maps of another Jakku map, or a map for Maz's place, or something like that. You have Finn as a confirmed hero. You have this, that, and the other. If they had done that, then I would have been fine. They didn't, though. They didn't have any trailers for any of this stuff. It was basically the developers for those respective companies coming out and saying, we're working on stuff. What does that tell me? What does that announce? It doesn't announce anything. It basically says, yeah, you got stuff coming down the pike. We don't know what it is. Well, this is E3. This is where you announce that. If you don't have that, don't bring it to E3. That's my problem here, is that this ended up being a colossal waste of time. And I'd much rather have heard about 2 other sports games on this one, stuff that I'm not interested in, than hear a whole bunch of nothing. Because at least at that point, I know that somewhere out there, I'm not the one that's being satisfied, but somebody is. And I'm sure somebody's going to come out and say, well, I was satisfied with what they did. I don't know how you can be, to be perfectly honest. They had nothing to say. And so at that point, I have to say, honestly, I really do think a majority of the conference was a flop for EA. Usually they flop as far as I am concerned. So I am biased on this matter, but it was really disappointing, especially since we've been waiting to hear about a lot of these properties, and we got nothing. Even the Mass Effect Andromeda thing, I was hoping to get a little bit more than just a trailer, but, well, it's still in development. So this is the best I could get. So that's kind of my final thoughts on the EA conference. It is the weakest thus far, but then again, not a whole lot of conferences are out yet. So that's going to go ahead and do it for my review of the EA press conference for E3 2016. Feel free to leave your comments below to see whether or not you agree with me, you disagree with me. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be 50-50 on that matter. Probably even a majority disagree with me, but that's your opinion, and this is mine. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and the next conference we're going to be talking about is Bethesda. We'll see you then.